The Forge of Titans. The Arcturus shipyard stretched across the void like a metal spider's web, its massive construction arms glowing with the light of 1,000 welding torches. At its center, cradled within the skeletal embrace of fabrication pylons, rested humanity's audacious gamble. The UEDS Harbinger. Captain Elena Reyes stood at the observation deck, her weathered face illuminated by the distant work lights. 20 years of military service had earned her respect throughout the United Earth Fleet. It had also given her a front-row seat to humanity's gradual subjugation. Magnificent, isn't she? Elena didn't turn at the voice. Dr. Malcolm Chen, the architect of the Harbinger program, moved to stand beside her. Unlike most scientists Elena had met, Chen carried himself with military precision, his lab coat worn like a uniform. 50,000 tons of advanced alloys, quantum-entangled shield arrays, and weaponry that would make our allies shudder, Chen continued, if they knew what we were building. And that's why I'm concerned, Elena said. We've been part of the Galactic Conclave for barely 30 years. We're still newcomers. This ship violates at least 12 different treaty provisions. Chen smiled thinly. Treaties designed to keep humanity dependent and weak. He wasn't entirely wrong. When Earth had achieved faster-than-light travel and encountered the Concorde, an alliance of 17 spacefaring civilizations, they'd been welcomed with open arms and patronizing smiles. Humanity had been granted access to limited technology, assigned resource-poor frontier systems, and politely but firmly guided toward economic and military dependence. The Tellurian incident changed everything, Chen said, referencing the pirate attack on a human colony that had killed thousands, while Concorde ships washed from orbit, claiming jurisdictional limitations. I remember, Elena said quietly. She'd lost her brother in that attack. This, Chen gestured to the Harbinger, ensures it never happens again. The ship itself was unlike any in the human fleet, where standard Earth vessels were bulky and utilitarian. The Harbinger was sleek and predatory. Its hull was covered in angular plates of black matte material that absorbed rather than reflected light, a visual metaphor for its purpose. Admiral Quan wants you to command her, Chen said. Elena finally turned to face him. Why me? Because you understand what's at stake. You've seen both sides, the Concorde's false promises and humanity's need to stand on its own. You're not an idealist or a warmonger. You're a realist. And you think a realist is the right choice for an experimental warship that could start an interstellar conflict. Chen's eyes hardened. I think a realist understands that sometimes you must show strength to avoid conflict. 3 weeks later, Elena stood on the bridge of the Harbinger as final preparations for the maiden voyage were completed. Her XO, Commander Jackson Wei, approached with a datapad. Final systems check complete, Captain. All green across the board. Elena nodded. Engineering. Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez reports the Crucible drive is operating within parameters, though she still has concerns about the power curves. The Crucible drive was the heart of the Harbinger's innovations, a propulsion and power generation system that supposedly manipulated the quantum foam itself. It made the ship faster, more maneuverable, and capable of generating 10 times the energy of a standard vessel. It was also completely unknown to the Concorde. Noted. Weapon systems. Wei hesitated. Graviton Lance is charged and operational. But Captain, the simulations suggest it's capable of. I've read the reports, Commander. Elena cut him off. She'd spent many sleepless nights reviewing those simulations. The Graviton Lance could shear through standard Concorde shields as if they were tissue paper. Helm, take us out. Standard departure protocol. The Harbinger slipped from its berth with surprising grace for a ship of its size. As they cleared the shipyard, Elena felt the subtle vibration of the Crucible drive engaging fully. There was no dramatic surge of acceleration, just a smooth, inexorable increase in velocity that pushed them well beyond the capabilities of conventional drives. Their mission was straightforward: a patrol of the Epsilon Eridani system, a human colony world near the borders of Concord space. Intelligence had reported unusual activity in the sector, possibly stemming from the reclusive Vraxis Dominion, a species that existed outside the Concord's influence and was known for aggressive territorial expansion. The journey took 3 days instead of the standard 2 weeks. They arrived at Epsilon Eridani without announcing their presence, the Harbinger's advanced stealth systems rendering them virtually invisible to standard sensors. "Scan the system," Alina ordered once they reached the outer planetary bodies. Lieutenant Park at Sensors frowned at her console. "Captain, I'm detecting multiple unidentified vessels in orbit around Epsilon Eridani IV. Classification: warships, ma'am. Configuration matches Vraxis design. 7 vessels, destroyer class or larger." Alina's blood went cold. Epsilon IV housed over 2 million colonists. "Where's the colony defense fleet?" We checked his console. "No sign of them, Captain." "Wait, I'm detecting debris fields consistent with Earth fleet signatures." The Epsilon defense fleet had been small, 3 frigates and a handful of patrol craft. No match for a Vraxis battle group. "Are they jamming communication?" Park nodded. "Colony-wide comm suppression. No distress signals getting out." That explained why Earth Command hadn't been alerted. Alina's mind raced through protocol. They were supposed to observe and report back. The Harbinger wasn't officially combat-ready, and engaging the superior force violated standard operating procedure. But 2 million lives hung in the balance. "Battle stations," Alina ordered. "Tactical, prepare the graviton lance. Target the largest Vraxis vessel." Wei's eyes widened. "Captain, we haven't fully tested the weapons systems in non-simulation environments." "Those are human lives down there, Commander. We don't have time to wait for reinforcements." Alina opened a channel to engineering. "Rodriguez, I need everything the Crucible can give us." "Aye, Captain," came the reply. "But I should warn you, we're still learning how this system behaves under combat conditions." "Noted. Helm, take us in." Full stealth approach. The Harbinger glided through the outer system like a ghost, its revolutionary hull material and energy dampeners making it virtually undetectable. They approached to within firing range of the Vraxis fleet without raising any alarms. "They're deploying landing craft," Park reported. "Ground invasion appears to be underway." Alina made her decision. "Disengage stealth systems. Open a channel." The bridge crew stared at her in surprise, but carried out the orders. The Harbinger's systems went to full power, suddenly appearing on every sensor in the system. "This is Captain Alina Reyes of the UES Harbinger to Vraxis vessels. You are engaged in an unprovoked attack on a human colony. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." The response was immediate, not verbal, but tactical. The Vraxis vessels broke orbit, realigning into combat formation with practiced precision. "They're powering weapons," Park reported. "Shields at maximum," Alina ordered. "Helm, evasive pattern delta." The first volley from the Vraxis ships streaked across space, coherent energy beams that would have crippled a standard Earth vessel. They washed over the Harbinger's quantum-entangled shields in waves of dissipating energy. "Shields holding at 92%, Wei reported, his voice tense but controlled. Alina nodded. "Target locked on their command vessel." "Yes, Captain." She took a deep breath. "Fire." The graviton lance activated with barely a whisper. There was no dramatic beam of light, no thunderous recoil, just a subtle distortion in space as gravitational forces were manipulated and focused into a concentrated attack. The effect on the target, however, was anything but subtle. The Vraxis command ship seemed to compress from the inside out, its hull buckling as if squeezed by an invisible fist. Secondary explosions cascaded along its length as internal systems catastrophically failed. Within seconds, the kilometer-long vessel had been reduced to a mangled wreck, drifting lifeless in space. Complete silence fell across the Harbinger's bridge. The tactical simulations hadn't prepared them for the awesome reality of what they'd just witnessed. "Status of the target?" Alina asked, her voice steady, despite the shock she felt. "Complete systems failure," Park replied. "Life support critically damaged. I'm detecting escape pods launching." The remaining Vraxis ships froze in place, as if their commanders couldn't process what they'd just witnessed. Then, as one, they began to retreat, accelerating away from the colony at maximum speed. "They're withdrawing," Wei said, disbelief evident in his voice. Elena nodded slowly. "Open a channel to the colony. Let them know the threat has been neutralized." She turned to Wei. "And prepare a full report for Earth Command. They need to know what happened here." As the adrenaline of combat faded, Elena stared at the view screen, watching the retreating Vraxis ships. The Harbinger had proven itself beyond anyone's expectations. With a single shot, it had changed the balance of power in this region of space. But as she looked at the shattered remains of the Vraxis command ship, a vessel that had carried thousands of sentient beings, a cold weight settled in her stomach. The responsibility of commanding such devastating power suddenly felt overwhelming. Humanity had taken its first step toward true independence in the galaxy. But Elena couldn't help wondering if they'd crossed a line that would forever change their path among the stars. Power had replaced diplomacy in an instant, and the galaxy would never look at humanity the same way again. The weight of consequence. News of the Harbinger's engagement with the Vraxis fleet spread through the galaxy with frightening speed. By the time Captain Elena Reyes stood before the United Earth Defense Council, recordings of the battle, captured by the colony's orbital facilities, had made their way to every major species in the Concord. The council chamber was tense with anticipation. Admiral Quan, Elena's direct superior, sat at the center of the curved table with the 5 other council members. His face was unreadable. "Captain Reyes," he began, "your actions at Epsilon Eridani saved over 2 million colonists from a Vraxis invasion force. For that, you have the gratitude of Earth and her colonies." Elena stood at attention, her dress uniform uncomfortable after weeks in the practical comfort of a shipsuit. "Thank you, Admiral. However," Council Representative Santos interjected, "the Concord has formally protested what they're calling an excessive show of force and deployment of prohibited weapons technology. They're demanding inspections of the Harbinger and full disclosure of its capabilities." "With respect, Representative," Elena replied, "the Vraxis were conducting a full-scale invasion of a human colony while the Concord did nothing. Their protests ring hollow." Admiral Quan raised a hand. "Nevertheless, we find ourselves in a delicate diplomatic situation. The Harbinger was supposed to be a closely guarded secret, deployed only in the most extreme circumstances. 2 million lives seemed extreme enough." "Sir," Elena said, "no one is questioning your decision to engage," Quan assured her. "But the effectiveness of the Harbinger has caused considerable alarm among our allies and our potential adversaries." Elena had expected this reaction. The quantum gravity manipulation technology that powered the Harbinger's weapons and drive systems was a game-changer. And the galaxy knew it. What they didn't know was that Earth had already laid keels for 2 more vessels of the same class. "What are your orders, Admiral?" she asked. "The Harbinger will continue its mission, but with modified parameters. You're to patrol the outer colonies, focusing on showing the flag rather than engaging potential threats. Let the galaxy see that we have this capability but aren't eager to use it. And if we encounter another situation like Epsilon Eridani," Quan's expression hardened, "use your judgment, Captain. But remember that with the power at your disposal comes an even greater responsibility. The Harbinger can win battles with a single shot. That doesn't mean it should." 2 months later, Elena stood on the Harbinger's bridge as they patrolled the Procyon system. The ship had been subtly modified after the Epsilon Eridani incident. The Graviton Lance recalibrated to allow for variable power settings, the shield systems enhanced to provide even greater protection. "Message from Earth Command, Captain," Communications Officer Lieutenant Hayes reported. "Priority 1. "In my ready room," Elena responded, stepping away from the bridge. The message was from Admiral Quan himself. His expression was grave. "Captain Rice, we've received troubling intelligence. The Vraxis have formed an alliance with 3 other non-Concord species, apparently in direct response to the Harbinger. They're calling it the Meridian Pact, and their combined fleet strength exceeds anything we've encountered before." Elena felt her stomach tighten. The very scenario that critics of the Harbinger program had warned about was coming to pass, an arms race that threatened to destabilize the entire sector. Furthermore, Quan continued, "We've detected unusual activity from the Concord as well. Their diplomatic overtures have become increasingly strained, and several of their military vessels have been observed conducting exercises near our border colonies." "Your orders, sir?" Elena asked the recording. "Proceed to the Ta City system. One of our research outposts there has gone silent. Given its proximity to both Vraxis and Concord space, we're concerned. Investigate, but exercise extreme caution. Avoid engagement if possible. Earth cannot afford a two-front conflict at this time." The message ended, leaving Elena with a growing sense of unease. The Harbinger had been created to protect humanity, but its very existence seemed to be drawing threats toward them. When they arrived at Tav City 3 days later, the research outpost was intact but abandoned. Scans showed no signs of battle or forced evacuation. "Life support is still functioning," Wei reported. "Power levels normal. It's as if the staff just left." "Any ships in the vicinity?" Elena asked. "None that we can detect," Park answered from sensors. "But there's some kind of interference at the edge of the system. It's affecting our long-range scans." Elena frowned. "Prepare a shuttle. I want a team on that outpost to access their systems directly. Perhaps they recorded something before they disappeared." The away team, led by Wei, returned 2 hours later with disturbing news. The outpost's logs showed that they had been making breakthroughs in understanding the same quantum manipulation principles that powered the Harbinger. Then, a week ago, they had detected an anomalous energy signature at the system's edge, and all logs abruptly ended. "The final entry from the chief researcher is concerning," Wei reported. He wrote, "They've been watching all along. We thought we were so clever, but we've only been catching up to where they've already been. God help us all." A cold shiver ran down Elena's spine. "Set course for the source of the interference. Full stealth mode. I want to know what we're dealing with." As they approached the outer reaches of the Ta City system, the interference grew stronger. Park worked feverishly at her console, trying to filter out the distortions. "Captain," she said finally, her voice hushed with disbelief, "I'm detecting a massive structure. It's not like anything in our database." The main view screen shifted to show a colossal object suspended in space. It resembled a series of interlocking rings, each several kilometers in diameter, rotating around a central sphere of impossible darkness that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. "It's generating an energy field unlike anything I've ever seen," Park continued. "The quantum signatures are similar to our crucible drive, but orders of magnitude more powerful. Any sign they've detected us?" Elena asked. "Negative, Captain. But, wait." Park's expression changed to one of alarm. "Energy spike. Something's launching from the structure. A small object, barely visible against the darkness of space, detached from the mysterious station and accelerated toward them at impossible speed. Evasive maneuvers," Elena ordered, but it was too late. The object passed through their quantum shields as if they weren't there and attached itself to the Harbinger's hull. Alarms blared across the bridge. Unknown device adhered to the hull. Section C7. Security Chief Alvarez reported. It's interfacing with our systems somehow." Every console on the bridge suddenly went dark, then reactivated with scrolling alien text. "What's happening?" Elena demanded. "Captain," Hayes called from communications, "we're receiving a transmission. It's coming through every system on the ship simultaneously." "Put it through." The view screen flickered, and an image appeared that made Elena's blood run cold. The figure wasn't human, nor was it any of the known Concord species. Its form seemed to shift slightly, as if it existed partially in another dimension. Harbingers of violence, the being spoke, its words somehow translating directly into their minds rather than through audio. You believe yourselves advanced because you have discovered the most basic manipulations of reality's fabric. Elena stepped forward. This is Captain Elena Reyes of the United Earth Fleet. We mean no hostility. Yet you build weapons of unprecedented destruction. The entity replied. We have observed your species since your first crude attempts at faster-than-light travel. We watched as you joined the Concorde and chafed under their restrictions. And now we watch as you take your first steps toward a path that has led countless civilizations to ruin. Who are you? Elena asked. We are the architects. We built the Concorde when your ancestors were still hunting with stone tools. We established the treaties your harbinger violates so flagrantly. Not to keep younger races weak, but to prevent them from destroying themselves before they were ready for the truth. Elena felt a chill at the implication. And what truth is that? That the universe is far more dangerous than you comprehend. That the weapons you have created to protect yourselves draw the attention of forces you cannot yet face. That power without wisdom is the surest path to extinction. The entity paused, its form shimmering. We have removed your researchers from this system. They are safe, learning truths they were on the verge of discovering at a potentially catastrophic cost. Now we offer you a choice, Captain Elena Reyes of the Harbinger. The view screen split to show two images. On one side, Earth's fleet, now including multiple Harbinger-class vessels, facing off against combined Fraxis and Concorde forces. The scene showed devastation on an unimaginable scale as planets burned and stars died. On the other side, a different vision. Humanity working alongside the Concorde, sharing technology, but with safeguards, gradually being introduced to deeper truths about the universe and its hidden players. Power or wisdom, Captain Reyes. The choice falls to you because you were the first to demonstrate the Harbinger's capabilities to the watching galaxy. What you decide here will set humanity's course for generations to come. Elena stared at the two futures, her mind racing. Everything in her military training pushed her toward maintaining humanity's independence and power, but the devastating consequences shown in that possible future gave her pause. If we choose cooperation, she asked slowly, will humanity still be able to defend itself? Will we have guarantees against exploitation? You will have knowledge greater than mere weapons, the entity replied. You will understand why the Concorde's restrictions exist and how to work within them toward greater advancement. And you will have our attention, which is protection enough against those who would harm you. Elena looked to her crew, seeing the fear and uncertainty in their eyes. The Harbinger had been built because humanity felt vulnerable and alone in a dangerous galaxy. But perhaps there were better paths to security than overwhelming firepower. We choose wisdom, Elena said finally. But we will not dismantle our defenses until we are certain of our place in this new arrangement. The entity seemed to nod. A prudent compromise. Perhaps your species has more potential than recent events suggested. The device attached to their hull detached, floating away from the ship. Return to Earth, Captain Reyes. Share what you have learned here. Representatives of both the Concorde and our own kind will contact your leaders within the day. The path ahead will not be easy, but it will lead to a future where power serves justice rather than replacing it. As the Harbinger set course for home, Elena stood at the view screen, watching the massive alien structure recede into the distance. They had set out to secure humanity's place in the galaxy through superior firepower. Instead, they had stumbled upon a truth that could reshape their understanding of everything. The ultimate human warship had been built to change the balance of power. Instead, it had revealed that true power lay not in weapons, but in the wisdom to know when not to use them. As Earth grew larger on their view screen days later, Elena knew that humanity stood at a crossroads. The lessons of the Harbinger would not be easily learned or implemented, But for the first time since they had ventured into the stars, they were not alone in their journey. And that perhaps was the greatest power of all.